Guess what time it is? It's 9:30. I'll take the surprise out of it for you there.
I was going to say 9:31.
No shock that we are right on time with KCIM Sports Rewind. I'm John Ryan.
I'm Jeff Blankman.
And I'm Mason Nealon.
And we're here to fill your head with a lot of useless information, honestly.
We do that every week, right?
Get ready. We're going to stuff it full today. We got so much useless information, we don't know what to do with it.
Okay. Now, we will help guys like Honnold because useless information is good for him, right?
We didn't even make it a minute into the show before the first slam went out. Wow. It's like I served a lob up to you right there. Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
I appreciate those.
All right. Yeah. Thanks. You're welcome. We're going to talk a little college football, things like that coming up. But let's talk a little bit about the conference realignment. There's been a little move on that. Last week we had Chris Cuellar on.
Yep.
Association said they're going to jump in the fray. Right. They're going to have a committee that's going to have to approve these conference jumps that schools are doing. I don't know when that's going to start or when that's going to take effect or if that would have any effect on what's going now. I assume it's not.
Right.
But Lewis Central making a move.
They did. Approved it last night. They're going to be heading to the Missouri River Conference, which is the one north of here, of course, with the Sioux City schools. So they'll join Sioux City East, Sioux City North, Sioux City West, Heelan, Lamar, Sergeant Bluff, Luton, and then the other Council Bluffs schools in Jefferson and Lincoln. They voted 7-0 last night to approve that move into the Missouri River Conference. It'll be effective a 2026-2027 school year. So next year, which is what a lot of teams, when they leave a conference, you finish up a year that you're in, and then, or if you're like right now, they're starting another season here soon, and then they move after that. So technically, that knocks the Hawkeye 10 down to 8 currently. And I know they've got 2 invites out, one to Carroll and one to Trainer. And
before we jump into that, it makes sense, right, Mason, for them to jump to that Missouri River Conference?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Lewis Central is one of the bigger schools in there, and they've always been kind of that outlier of bigger schools when you look at some of those other programs that are in the Hawkeye 10
They've been the odd duck of the Hawkeye 10, I think.
Yeah, they have been.
I mean, they're just out there, and they're such a bigger school than everybody else.
Yeah, so, and it's a perfect fit for them. It
really is.
St. Albert's the only Council Bluffs school now not in that conference, and that's because they're a small school. And then you're in with the Sioux City schools, which is straight up I-29, so it's not that long of a haul, and Sergeant Bluff Luton isn't that far because it's right there by Sioux City. The only tough one would maybe be Lamar's because they're kind of off the beaten path just a little bit, but not too terribly far from the Sioux City
but they
area.
got great ice cream stores up there.
They do.
I mean,
yes.
It's worth the bus trip just to go get the ice cream.
Yep, and I talked to Haley Burks when I was up there because she's coaching and teaching up there when I went up to do the softball game, and she says that they've got some great restaurants in that community as well.
They do. I've been to a few of them up there. So, I mean, it makes total sense for Lewis Central to go. But then you look at the Hawkeye 10. They need to add schools, and clearly right in the bullseye there is Carroll High.
Yes, and I know Abby, our assistant news director, was at the school board meeting last night. She said they had a brief conversation about the invite. They just kind of read what the invite was, the way it sounded, what it sounds like they're going to do, and I'm assuming she probably has a news story about that, or will here soon, that they're going to put a petition out, or not a petition, but a questionnaire out to get the thoughts of the parents and the kids and the community members about the potential move into the Hawkeye 10, and it does sound like they want to get all the information gathered and move fairly quickly on it. What I understood in my conversation with her last night is that they would like to vote in next month's meeting on whether or not they will make that move.
I don't know why they wouldn't move, right, Mason?
Yeah, I think, Carroll's probably the big prize for the Hawkeye 10 because, they wanted to split up and do kind of the big side of the conference, little side of the conference, and obviously with Kemper just down the road from Carroll, you want to have that rivalry set in there and say kind of this is what we're going to have for the next couple of years, is having Carroll and Kemper play in almost every sport 2 times a year.
Yeah, you got Carroll, you got Denison, you got Harlan. They're all kind of right there.
Yep.
But it also puts Carroll and Kemper back in the same conference. You're going to have to play in football and everything else once again.
Yeah. Well, football's
districts. Okay.
Yep. But the question I keep hearing is Kemper's growing and eventually going to move back to 3A if you're the state and you have 2 schools in the same class size in the same town, it almost makes sense.
How do you keep them apart?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the dominoes appear to be falling just in conversations, with people attached to Carroll High. they really wanted Red Oak, Shenandoah, Clarinda, Lewis Central to kind of leave the conference. That takes away some of their longer travel games. Now, Clarinda, I was kind of joking with you.
This is a crazy situation.
Yeah, from what I've understood, and I get conferences have limits, but, the Western Iowa Conference, which now has Red Oak and Shenandoah coming into the conference, has a travel limit, which I'm going to have to dig a little bit deeper into it, because I can understand a travel limit. At the same time, I sit here and I go, okay, you have a travel limit, but where does it start? Because they're not inviting Clarinda because they're outside of the travel distance by like 5 miles.
They're a pitching wedge away from the conference, but they can't join.
But they can't join. And the weird thing is that it would be a hop, skip, and a jump for Shenandoah to go play Clarinda, because what are they, 6 miles? Something like that apart. So that would be the other school that I think, Carol, just because of travel, no other reasons, but because of travel, because if you lose those schools, even now, Clarinda is a long drive, St. Albert and Glenwood are long drives. You're down now to 3 long drives, depending on if Trainer accepts the invite to the Hawkeye 10 as well. I don't see that happening, but you're down to 3 long drives, where if you stay in the Raccoon River Conference, Boone's the only short drive you have. So, and then we were kind of talking, if Carroll High does go,
who would be that 10th team?
Yeah, if Trainer declines, do you talk to Storm Lake? Do you talk to Greene County? Greene County travels way to the east for almost every one of their conference games. Would they be more apt to want to travel to Carroll and to Kemper and to Denison, which would be shorter drives? Even Atlantic and Harlan would appear to be somewhat shorter drives than a lot of their conference games are now. So
they got great facilities now at Greene County.
They do.
That's the school to me that makes the most sense.
Right. Yep.
So just travel-wise and all of that. But I could easily see, Mason, Greene County would be the target. Storm Lake just doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah, no, Storm Lake, you put Storm Lake in there, and it's a Clarinda drive that's 3.5, almost 4 hours down south, and then it makes no sense for Clarinda to go up there either. But if you put Greene County, that cuts a little bit of that off. And, you've seen Kemper when they go to postseason matches. It's almost always you see one of them at Greene County, because it's just a 30-minute drive there. And you think about probably an hour for Denison, 30 minutes for Carroll, 30 for Kemper, and then down south you got a little bit of a drive. But it makes sense because they're right here next to us.
Yeah, exactly. So my question is, if the association is going to have a committee that says, yes, we need to approve these, what about the case of Clarinda? Can they force a conference to accept a school? It's like, you've got to take Clarinda.
Right. In listening to Chris, I didn't gather that they'll have the ability to go to a conference and say, you have to take somebody. It sounded to me more like, and you can tell me if you thought you understood him differently, that it's more of okay, this is a move that's wanting to be made. We have to look at it and make sure that it's the correct move and approve it. So, but yeah, it would be interesting, because I honestly, if Clarinda would want to leave, and I'm not for sure, not knowing anybody down there, if they would want to leave, it only makes sense for them to join the WIC.
What if we give Clarinda to Missouri? What is that an option?
It's close enough.
I know. You could throw a rock into Missouri from Clarinda.
You
Come
could.
on.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, I'm just teasing Clarinda.
Yes.
But it's a crazy situation. And I don't think it's that big of a stretch for the association to say, well, we need to approve these, but now you need to step up and invite Clarinda to the to your conference and things. So I don't think it's that big of a stretch.
No,
honestly.
but then if you're the Hawkeye 10, you're down to 7. Depending on what Trainer and Carroll do. If you get both of them, you're only back up to 9. Again, do you try to get to 10? Now, I do chuckle because the Big Ten and all these conferences are like this
Nobody
anymore.
has their number.
Nobody has their number on it anymore. So does it bother the Hawkeye 10? They had 11 in it forever, and stuff once St. Albert joined. So do they try to get back to the 10? Because they're not going to change their name to the Hawkeye 9 or the Hawkeye 8. So
would it just be the Hawkeye Conference at that point?
Yeah.
Just drop the number and go, we are what we are.
I don't know if I want to cover it if it's just known as the Hawkeye Conference.
Wow. Okay, we went there already.
Yes.
All right, so that's enough about conference talk. I mean, we could sit here and chat forever about that.
One other thing that Mason and I are kind of excited about, if Carroll High goes and with the ICAM Manning and Audubon moving from the Wick to the Rolling Valley is going to have 11 schools, I think we decided.
I think it was 10
schools.
7 of them are local.
And 7 of them will be schools that we cover. So we're going to be down to covering pretty much the Rolling Valley, the Twin Lakes, and the Hawkeye 10. We're going to have less conferences to kind of worry about trying to cover. But, I joked with South Central Calhoun and East Sac, and I'm like, why don't you guys look to move into like the Rolling Valley and just, then we'd be down to 2 conferences. We'd pretty much cover almost everybody again. 7 of the 10 teams in the Rolling Valley next school year will be teams that we cover.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Let's talk coaching moves. Michael Barta moving back to Kemper, and has it been official? And what his role is going to be?
Co-head coaches is what I understand.
That's kind of what the
you said family members ran into him, and that's kind of.
And so I'm like, me and John said it. You bring a guy like Michael Barta in, you're not gonna put him in as the assistant coach, especially when him and Riley are first cousins and they get along really well. I mean, it just makes sense with that type of a talent with the coach and the coach that Riley is as well. I mean, you put 2 of these really good coaches together on the same staff.
Yep. So understand co-head coaches. We'll find out for sure next Tuesday.
Well, wait a minute. We invited him on today's show, Michael Barta, but he turned us down. Can you believe that? What is? I'm offended.
Yeah, he's just
how
too dedicated,
he?
Right?
I know. It's apparently he's used some excuse about it being his first day at Kemper and didn't want to take his time off already.
Yeah. I sent him a text and I'm like, really sorry for a late ask, but would you be available to come on Tuesday, for the Rewind program between 9:30 and 10 and talk about, your time at Johnston and then coming back home, to Kemper and what your plans are and stuff. And he texts back and he goes, thanks for reaching out. I would really like to do it. But he goes, Tuesday's my first day of actual work for my new bosses. He goes, I don't feel real comfortable going in and going, hey, can I get an hour off on my first day, at the job. I wanted to joke with him and go, you're Michael Barta. Just go in and say, I'm Michael Barta. I'm taking an hour.
And I'm doing this.
Yes.
So anyway, welcome back to Kemper. Of course, what an asset for the baseball program to have. I mean, nothing against Riley Bach.
Right, no.
It's going to be a great addition, those two working together.
Yes. Well, and what an addition into the entire Kemper family and Kemper, staffs up there for everything. You get a guy like that in there, it's going to probably leak into every program a little bit. You got a guy that's won as many state titles as he does that's going to bring, an attitude and everything else to there. Not that they don't have great programs now, but it could increase even how good their programs are when you have another mind like that in the school system. Yeah,
when you're at that level, any of those little intangibles that he can bring could make a huge difference for you.
And we talk about the great teams they have. Ranked number 1 in Class 2A in football in the preseason. Volleyball ranked number 2. So, there's some really high expectations at Kemper coming into this fall sports season.
Well, since you brought that up, we're going to preview the fall sports season here coming up next. You're listening to KCIM Sports Rewind, brought to you by St. Anthony Rehab Services.
As the athletes at your house prepare for hard work and fun of the season, remember that St. Anthony Rehab Services provides physical therapy for any sports injury that may sideline your member of the team. Sports injuries can plague kids of all ages and keep them from playing the sport they love. Athletes will be under the direct supervision of a certified and licensed healthcare professional in the newly renovated Sports Performance Facility. If an injury is keeping your athlete out of the game, call St. Anthony Rehabilitation Services at 794-5000 for sports injury and treatment rehab.
Stay ready for whatever the day brings with the Whirlpool French door refrigerator. Hi, it's Kessie from Dries Company. Family size capacity and large ice storage freezer means there's space for everything, from daily staples to party platters. Flexible organization like adjustable glass shelves, gallon door bins, and even pint-sized storage lets you customize your space to fit your life. Check out the Whirlpool French door refrigerator today by stopping by Dries Company, 609 North Carroll Street in Carroll.
Dries Company. Looking to keep your workforce safe, strong, and on the job? Stewart Memorial offers custom-designed corporate health and wellness programs tailored to your business. Our expert team provides on-site assessments, workforce evaluations, and rehab using industrial-specific knowledge and specialized equipment. Partner with Stewart Memorial to build a healthier, safer workplace. Call 712-464-4244 to learn more today.
Choose excellence. Choose Stewart Memorial Community Hospital.
What started as a childhood passion for my dad became a lifelong mission and career. Hi, it's Whitney. As a proud veteran, my dad Mike built Wendell's Weapons on service, trust, and community. We're family-owned, veteran-operated, and committed to doing things the right way. Wendell's Weapons and Carroll Sheds, generation strong, community proud.
In Iowa, farming isn't just a job, it's a way of life. And at Jacobson Seed, we know that better than anyone. When a farmer calls or stops in with a question, they get a real person who knows their fields, their challenges, and their goals. We take the time to listen, to recommend the right seed for the right conditions, and to stand by our farmers from planting to harvest. At Jacobson Seed, it is not just about selling seed, it's about trust, relationships, and growing something great together. Jacobson Seed, your American veteran, family-owned, independent seed company.
KCIM Sports Rewind. It's John, it's Jeff, it's Mason with you here, and let's talk a little preview of the fall sports season. Starting with volleyball, not going to give you any time off here. I want your power rankings, the top 5 going into the season.
Okay.
I was going to say number 1's pretty obvious for me.
Yeah, I'll let Mason run through it.
Number 1, Kemper.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any question on that one.
It's about as easy of a vote probably as you're going to get this year. They're absolutely loaded.
Who's number 1?
Who's number 1?
If they're number 2, who's number 1?
Western Christian.
Western Christian, as always.
Yep. They're that program along with Dyke, who's a class size smaller in Class 2A. But we sat down last Friday night and went through our football schedule, and I'll explain here in a moment. But of who's doing what games, so we were all together, and of course we started talking volleyball and the rewind thing that we'll do at the end of the year. And I kind of jokingly said, that Brianna Whitrock, who played hurt all year last year, was our rewind player of the year, and she needed to have surgery on her hip, and she got it done after the season. She played in pain all year, and kind of joked with her. I'm like, so how good and what expectations should we have with you this year if you're healthy? But you look at that team, there's 2 other girls on that team that jump off the board at you as strong contenders to be the player of the year this year, along with Brianna in that. So, I would say probably 3, if not 4 of our top 4 or 5 players in our area all reside on that Kemper team.
Yeah.
Where's the strength in the team? I mean, is it just all over?
It's all over.
All over the court?
Yeah. I mean, you've got an elite libero that can handle the back row pretty much all by herself in Kaylee Simons. She's special back there. And then you have other talent to go with her. And then you look at all the hitters, Brianna Whitrock, Olivia Schinkelberg, Colby Peter, Mariah Houghton. They're so loaded. And then they're going to have freshmen that are going to come in and push for time. Addie Antover, another one of those hitters. There's not a weakness to this team, and that's the reason why they're ranked number 2. I think they have 87% of last year's production back. So that tells you that there's not really a weak spot on that team.
It's not going to be a drop-off. All right,
nope.
Clear-cut number 1. Yep. Give me the other ones.
Yeah, now it's kind of difficult because I look at a lot of these teams, and it's like, IKEA Manning's going to look good, Audubon's going to look good, Coon Rapids will end up being good, I think.
Zyro Kimballton will be good. I think ESAC will be good. So I think we've got, it's going to be hard to figure out who 5 and 6 are. I think you could slip all of those teams in there and do a top 6. I think those will probably be. I really like the IKM Manning team. I might put them at number 2, and then kind of a battle between Kuhn and Zyro Kimballton for number 3 and 4.
I think Audubon's probably going to get that 5 for me because, Molly, as a coach, probably going to be able to elevate them a little bit. And you talk about some of the names they got, getting Riley Miller this year and having her as a hitter. They have Harlow Miller there. Yeah. They have Anna Larson coming back as their setter. They got names and they got talent, and so I think that they'll be pretty good this year.
will have her second year in the program, and they'll have a good back row. And, they've got one of the elite coaches in Molly Lang on the staff now. But you also have one of the elite players. You talk about a potential player of the year. Harlow Miller is really, really special as a volleyball player. So you've got one of the best players in our area residing down in Audubon this year. So I look at them, and ESAC's going to graduate a lot off of last year. They're not going to have as much firepower in a way. But they're going to have more depth. I just talked with Coach, and he's excited about the year. You look at what they have and what they always seem to have. Every year they seem to graduate a bunch of girls, and then they have just another group of girls that have kind of waiting in the wings, and they never seem to drop off much. But I would probably be okay with putting Audubon 5 and then ESAC County 6 if you wanted to do a top 6.
All right, there you go. There's the power rankings heading into the volleyball season. Now, when do they get underway?
Monday.
Monday.
We'll have our first volleyball broadcast coming up on Monday. Kemper is hosting a host of schools coming up on a Monday, but I know Van Meter is one of those, and they will. We're going to be broadcasting. I'm going to be broadcasting that game coming up on Monday. So let me look it up exactly here. So on Monday it'll be Underwood and Van Meter at Kemper. Underwood will play Kemper at 4:30. Then Van Meter and Kemper will play. Van Meter and Underwood will play, and then Kemper and Van Meter are scheduled to get underway at about 6:15. Glen Ralston opens up that night as well, as they're going to be taking on Collins Maxwell. So,
all right, so you got a preview show all put together for the volleyball program or volleyball season upcoming. This Thursday night, I believe, is the first night?
Yes. We're finalizing some of the interviews with the coaches and stuff like that. But yeah, 6:30 till 8 o'clock right here on KCIM. And then if you miss it, we'll re-air it on Monday night from 6:30 to 8 again here on KCIM. And then we kind of have a time limit for the show. And some of our interviews go really long and stuff. So you'll get what we'll say is the edited interview so that it fits the time frame. We're close as we can on the air. I will post the unedited versions of those interviews on the website Monday night after the show ends and after I get done doing the volleyball broadcast. So you'll get the full interviews, on the website as well. So if you can't catch it on the radio, try to catch them on the radio, but then you can go to the website later on and find them there as well.
All right, so that kind of wraps up volleyball, so we'll get ready for that season. Yep. Let's talk a little football action. You did the preview show, and that's coming up Friday and Saturday morning, I believe. No, Friday and Sunday morning.
Sunday morning, yep.
Friday night at 6:30, and then Sunday morning at 10:30. You'll hear that preview show going on there. So power rank it for me. Give me the top 5 teams that you think in local high school football.
I think, honestly, you look at it, and I think we're really deep in football this year. I mean, a lot of the coaches talking to them are pretty high on their team. I think, obviously, 1 and 2 for me are between Kemper and Audubon. I think that when you talked to Sean Burks, that he's pretty optimistic about their team this year, and obviously Kemper returning both Brock Bating and Jaron Hoffman, which is a lot of their production from last year. Obviously, they're going to be up there for that, but I think we're pretty deep in football this year.
Yeah, I think Kemper's loaded. This might be the best team that they've put on the field since that state championship team. Not saying they win it. I think they'll certainly contend, but not going to put the pressure on and say that, they're state champions before the season starts. But they'll certainly be a team that should contend for the Dome. And then you never know what happens once you get there. Agree with Audubon. Talking to Sean Burks, he said this might be the biggest, most physical and maybe the fastest team that they've had on the field, and they've played for a state championship in the last 5 years. So you got to really like what you're seeing down there. Some other teams that I think, just looking at on paper and in talking to coaches, that I think should have a chance to be really good. I think everybody's very high on Ike and Manning. I think everybody's extremely high on Arweva. So I think you could go 3 and 4 with those two teams. And then I think Coach Rowetter thinks that they're going to shock some people. The tough thing for them is that district may be really good. They might be like the third best team in that district, but still be a team that can make an extremely deep run like in the postseason, because that district's going to be really good.
Yeah, I mean, Carol Rowetter said that they were going to be pretty good this year, and you look at it, I mean, a Harlan team that's expected to do a lot this year, but after that, I mean, it's kind of 2 through 6 there. Anyone could really shake things up and go there. But I think, Carol, if they can put the pieces together this year and figure some stuff out, then they can get it going. I mean, obviously going to be a new quarterback under center this year for them and a couple new running backs and stuff like that. But, I mean, when you talk about it, we said Michael Rowetter probably going to be the running back there.
Yep.
And I think Coach Rowe's pretty high on him in the backfield.
And, we'll throw one other team out here just because so much respect for him as a coach. But when you got Brian Case on the sidelines, you never count South Central Calhoun out as a team that could put together one heck of a good football season. But, you talk about Michael Rowetter in the backfield. There are two, not that I'm not excited, to watch a lot of our football players and all of our teams, but there's two guys up front this year that we always talk about, the skill guys and how good they are and the numbers they put up, because it's easy to look at offensive numbers and stuff like that. But Gavin Holt is a man up front for Carroll, and it's going to be scary fun watching him. Heard a story from Coach Rowetter. They were at the Central camp earlier this summer. It was right before state baseball, if I remember correctly, and he was picking defensive linemen up and throwing them where he needed them to go. And literally there was opposing coaches that were having a scrimmage, Carroll, that were coming up and saying, we don't have anybody that can contend with him. Can you not play him against us because we don't want to get anybody hurt?
In the scrimmages?
In the scrimmages and stuff. Yeah, he's that good. And then Austin Christensen down in Audubon is kind of the same way. I'll tell a funny story. Is when I was talking to Sean, they were at that same Central camp, and Austin fired off and pancaked his guy, and it looked like the blocker next to him also pancaked his guy. So they were all celebrating that on the sidelines. When they went and watched film, they realized that Austin fired off, picked his guy up off of the ground where his feet were off the ground, threw him sideways, and knocked the other defender over. And stuff. Yeah, so he technically pancaked two guys in one block. And the other thing with Austin is defensively, I hope he gets through this year healthy. He has been just incredible on the defensive side of the ball each of the last 2 years. In fact, I think a healthy season from him the last 2 years, he was probably our Rewind Defensive Player of the Year, but injuries took several games away from him each season. And I'm really looking forward to watching Gavin up front and Austin Christensen up front for those two teams this year.
What's the best district race, or district race, I guess it would be in football, yeah.
I like Carroll's district because I think Carroll can contend. I might have said they could be a third-place team. That's just because that district is really deep. But I really like that district.
Now, who are the teams you figure might finish in front of Carroll?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I don't have the list right in front of me.
I think Harlan for sure, and then there's some other teams. There's like a Greene County team that, they're in there. I'm blanking on who's actually
first year with the new district. So
I know.
It's kind of hard.
See, I'm not used to it either. Yeah. That's why I asked the question.
And stuff. And I didn't bring in the actual district list or whatever. Let me see if I can figure it out as Mason chats here a little bit. And then my other one, and I'll let Mason talk a little bit, my other potential one would be the district with like Audubon and Arweva and Coon and Cam. I think that district could be absolutely loaded this year as well.
I mean, people are putting Arweva up there, and I think Arweva is going to be talented this year, but you talk about teams like Audubon and Cam, they face off like week 3, I think, and that could be a really good game. But all of our 8-man schools right in there, and I think a lot of our 8-man schoolers are high on what they can do this year, and that I think, obviously we talk about Audubon and Arweva, but you think about it, you can get a Coon Rapids in there, Glen Ralston in there, they're all going to go out and they're going to perform, but I think it'll be a fun district that year.
So here's Carroll's district: Spencer, Humboldt, Lewis Central, Harlan, Greene County, Creston, Perry, and Atlantic.
Creston.
Yes.
That's
a haul. Yes.
What's the farthest north? Spencer? Spencer going to Creston, or Creston going to Spencer? Man.
Yeah. It's a good thing Nick Brinks likes doing games with us because he, when we got together last week, he goes, so if anybody wants any of the travel games this year, I'm okay with that. But if nobody wants them, I'll just take them.
You're on, Nick. You're on, man.
Now, I will say I stepped up and I'm taking the Kemper at Esterville Lincoln Central game. Yeah. I don't know why. I mean, I'm in Minnesota.
I told you I would have taken the Esterville Lincoln Central one, but Jeff goes, well, I haven't seen Kemper yet. I'll take the Esterville Lincoln Central.
I'll take that trip. So, but I also told Mason, and I'm like, that you got to do all the interviews for Saturday morning's coaches show because I'm not going to roll back into town until about 2 o'clock in the morning.
So speaking of that, when is the coaches show back on the air?
We'll have our first Saturday coaches show on the 30th with the Carroll and Kemper coaches. coaches. And then, of course, we've already started previewing the cross country and the tennis. And we'll talk with Deb Danner tomorrow for girls swimming. So we're previewing those. That podcast center, the weekly sports recap interplace, that's where you go. We'll talk to all of our coaches every week, volleyball, swimming, and girls tennis and all that. And those will be posted on that podcast. So that you'll find those interviews every week there.
Yeah, so actually what you do right now is just get that mobile app downloaded as CB Sports Network in your app store. That's where you look for all of that coming up for this total sports coverage for this fall from Jeff and Mason. Once again, it's the mobile app CB Sports Network in your app store. That is KCIM Sports Rewind for this week. Once again, catch a podcast available of this show, available in a couple of minutes right here on 1380 KCIM.com.